the lost Egyptian machine buried under the pyramids, and the day it was rediscovered. In 2017, a team of physicists pointed a particle detector at the Great Pyramid of Giza and found something that shouldn't have been there. Not a machine, not a hidden civilization. Something stranger, because it was real. A massive empty space, larger than a passenger jet, sealed inside 4,500-year-old stone, completely unknown to anyone for over 4,000 years. No excavation had touched it. No hieroglyph had mentioned it. It had simply been sitting there in the dark, above the Grand Gallery since the pyramid was built. And nobody, not the ancient priests, not Napoleon's engineers, not a century of modern archaeologists, had ever known it existed. This is the story of how it was found, why it still hasn't been fully explained, and what the real, documented mysteries of the Great Pyramid actually are. Without the myths, without the fabricated AI discoveries you might have seen online, and without pretending we know more than we do. Let's start with what's true, because the true story is strange enough on its own. The Great Pyramid of Khufu was built around 2560 BCE, out of roughly 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite, some weighing as much as 80 tons. It was the tallest human-made structure on Earth for almost 4,000 years, a record unbroken until the construction of Lincoln Cathedral in the 1300s. It was built, according to every serious line of archaeological evidence we have: worker villages, ration records, quarry marks, skeletal remains showing signs of medical care for injured laborers, by a paid, organized, fed workforce of Egyptians, not by slaves and not by a lost civilization. That part of the story is well established. But the how of it, the specific engineering choices, still leaves real gaps that scholars openly argue about, and that's where this gets interesting. The first honest mystery is precision. In the 1880s, the British engineer and archaeologist Flinders Petrie carried out one of the most rigorous surveys ever done of the pyramid's internal chambers, using tools built for shipbuilding-grade accuracy. What he found, and what later laser scans have confirmed, is that some of the granite surfaces inside the king's chamber are flat to within a fraction of an inch across spans of several feet, and that certain joints between blocks are so tight you cannot slide a razor blade into them. That is genuinely difficult to explain using only copper chisels, stone hammers, and wet sand as an abrasive, which is the toolkit we have physical evidence the builders possessed. Experimental archaeologists have replicated cuts in granite using exactly these tools, and they can do it. It is slow, it is laborious, and it does not naturally explain every surface we see. This is not settled. Some Egyptologists argue that skilled repetition and enormous amounts of labor time close the gap entirely. Others think we're missing a technique, perhaps a now-lost method of using harder stones like dolerite as pounders, combined with abrasive sand and copper tube drills, that could account for what we see without needing anything exotic. Nobody serious claims the pyramid required tools that don't fit a Bronze Age society. But nobody honest claims the precision question is fully closed either. The second mystery, and the one that actually made global headlines, is the Scan Pyramids project. Starting in 2015, an international team of scientists used a genuinely elegant piece of physics to look inside the pyramid without drilling a single hole. Cosmic rays constantly rain down on Earth, and a fraction of them are muons, particles that can pass through hundreds of feet of solid stone before finally stopping. By placing detectors inside and around the pyramid and counting how many muons made it through different areas, the team could effectively build an X-ray image of the pyramid's interior, because muons pass more easily through empty space than through solid rock. In November 2017, they published their results in the journal Nature, one of the most rigorously peer-reviewed scientific journals in the world. 3 independent detector systems, built by 3 separate teams, all agreed there was a large void above the Grand Gallery, at least 100 feet long, that no one had ever mapped or entered. They called it the Big Void. In 2023, using an even more refined muon technique combined with radar and ultrasound, a follow-up study led by Christian Gross's team narrowed down its shape further, suggesting it might be a corridor-like structure. As of the most recent published surveys, nobody has physically entered it. Nobody knows for certain what it was built for. The leading, most conservative hypothesis among Egyptologists is that it's a construction relief space, an architectural gap left to redistribute the crushing weight of the stone above the king's chamber, similar to smaller relieving chambers we already know exist elsewhere in the pyramid. That is the boring, plausible, well-supported answer. But it is still, technically, an unexplained space inside the most studied building on Earth, found using physics that didn't exist 100 years ago. That part isn't hype. That part is documented, peer-reviewed, and true. The third real mystery is about sound, and this one deserves to be told carefully because it's easy to exaggerate, and I don't want to do that to you. The king's chamber, built entirely from granite, does have unusual acoustic properties. Researchers, including a study presented by Anglia Ruskin University acoustic scientists in 2013, measured how the chamber resonates and found it has a distinct resonant frequency in the range where the human body can feel vibration more than hear it. This is a real, measured, physical property of a rectangular room built from a dense stone with hard, parallel granite surfaces, which is exactly the kind of geometry that tends to produce standing waves. It does not require lost technology to explain. Any sufficiently large stone room with the right proportions will do something similar. It's basic acoustics, the same physics that makes a wine glass ring when you run a wet finger around its rim. What we don't know, and what remains an honest open question, is whether the ancient builders intended this effect, understood it, and designed the chamber's proportions around it on purpose, or whether it's simply a byproduct of choosing red granite for structural strength and getting the acoustics as an accident of geometry. Some researchers who study the site think the intentionality is plausible, given how deliberately the Egyptians used geometry and proportion elsewhere in their sacred architecture. Many other archaeologists remain skeptical, pointing out that we have no accompanying textual or artistic evidence that sound was a design goal. Both positions are reasonable. Neither one requires inventing a lost global civilization to make sense of it. There's a fourth piece of real evidence that rarely makes it into the dramatic version of the story, and it's arguably the most important one because it tells us who these builders actually were. In the 1990s, archaeologists excavating just south of the Giza Plateau uncovered an entire lost city, now called Hayt el-Ghurab, built to house and feed the pyramid's workforce. What they found there wasn't the remains of an enslaved or anonymous mass of labor. They found bakeries capable of producing thousands of loaves of bread a day, breweries, cattle and sheep bones from animals butchered specifically to feed workers, dormitories, and administrative buildings for organizing shifts and rations. Nearby, in a separate cemetery, skeletons of laborers showed healed fractures that had clearly been set and treated, evidence of medical care for injuries sustained on the job, not the marks of a disposable workforce. Graffiti left by work crews inside the pyramid's relieving chambers, uncovered by earlier explorers, even names the gangs themselves, with titles like Friends of Khufu, suggesting pride of ownership in the project rather than coerced misery. None of this makes the engineering any less astonishing. If anything, it makes it more impressive because it means a functioning, well-organized Bronze Age state, not a mythical vanished civilization, pulled off one of the greatest construction projects in human history using logistics, planning, and manpower we can actually document. And separately, sealed inside pits cut directly into the bedrock beside the pyramid. Archaeologists in 1954 found something else entirely real, a full-size cedarwood ship, over 4,000 years old, disassembled into more than 1,200 pieces and buried in near-perfect condition. It took a single restorer, Ahmed Youssef Mustafa, over a decade to work out how the pieces fit together without a single manual to guide him. That boat is now reassembled and on display, a genuine 4,000-year-old vessel built with a level of woodworking precision that still surprises marine archaeologists today. These are the kinds of details that get lost when a video skips straight to secret machines and hidden AI verdicts. Real people, real names, real injuries, real bread ovens, and a real boat, sitting patiently in a museum that needed no exaggeration at all to be remarkable. Now here's where I want to be very direct with you, because there's a version of this story spreading online that you may have already seen, and it is not true. You may have come across videos claiming that an artificial intelligence was given secret data from underneath the Giza Plateau and discovered a hidden machine chamber, complete with rotating tool marks, infrasonic resonators tuned to match sites in Peru and the Mediterranean, and a network of monuments aligned to a sky from 12,000 years ago, proving a lost advanced civilization existed before Egypt and was wiped out in a global flood. None of that has happened. There is no verified hidden machine chamber beneath the pyramid. No credible research institution, no peer-reviewed journal, and no member of the Scan Pyramids team or any other legitimate Giza research project has published anything resembling this. No AI has been given a secret dataset and returned a verdict like this because that dataset doesn't exist. This narrative uses real, genuinely fascinating anomalies, the precision tolerances, the big void, the acoustic resonance, and stitches them together with completely invented details to build something that sounds authoritative but isn't. It borrows the shape of a scientific discovery without any of the substance, and that matters because the real story is already compelling enough without needing to lie about it. So, why does the myth version spread so easily? Partly because it's genuinely well constructed as a story. It uses real scientific-sounding language, cites the kind of details, muon scans, resonant frequencies that sound like they came from an actual paper. It flatters the audience by suggesting we're finally smart enough or unbiased enough to see a truth that the establishment was too afraid to admit. And it taps into something very human, the appeal of a hidden world beneath the world we know, a secret waiting patiently in the dark for someone to finally listen. That's a powerful story. It's just not a true one, and repeating it as fact does something worse than get details wrong. It quietly erodes trust in the actual archaeologists, engineers, and physicists who have spent their careers doing the slow, careful, unglamorous work of real discovery, the kind of work that gave us the big void through legitimate peer-reviewed science instead of a dramatic voiceover. The honest version of this story doesn't need a lost civilization to be worth telling. Think about what we actually know, stripped of exaggeration. A society with no iron tools, no wheeled heavy transport, and no written engineering blueprints that survive today, organized tens of thousands of workers, fed them, housed them, and moved millions of tons of stone with enough precision that some of it still baffles engineers trained on modern machinery. They built chambers whose proportions may or may not have been chosen, deliberately or not, to make the room itself hum at a frequency you feel in your chest before you hear it. And nearly 4,500 years later, using physics based on particles raining down from deep space, we found a room inside their masterpiece that no living person had ever seen, sealed and waiting exactly where they left it. We still don't fully know what that room was for. We may not know for years. That is not a story about ancient robots or a forgotten master race. It's a story about how much mystery can still hide inside something humanity has been staring at for 4,500 years, and how the right question, asked with the right tool, whether that tool is a cosmic ray detector or a laser scanner, can still crack open a secret hidden in plain sight. If there's one thing worth taking from this, it's that you don't need to invent a lost civilization to find the Great Pyramid astonishing. The real, documented, peer-reviewed mysteries, the big void nobody has entered, the tolerances nobody has fully explained, the resonance nobody has proven was intentional, are already stranger and more interesting than most of what gets invented about them. The next time you see a video promising a secret AI verdict or a hidden machine chamber, ask a simple question. Where's the paper? Where's the peer review? Where's the team whose reputation is actually on the line for this claim? If the answer is nowhere, that's not a conspiracy being suppressed. That's usually just a story that was never true to begin with. The pyramid has kept plenty of real secrets for over 4,000 years. It doesn't need us inventing new ones.